My knees struck the grass again before I could force myself upright. "Stand up," Alpha Harry Thornridge ordered. Blood was already running from the mating mark he had driven too deeply into my throat. My vision blurred, but there was no mercy in my fated mate's eyes. When my body finally gave out completely, the entire pack watched me fall at his feet. What none of them knew was why Harry despised the mate the moon goddess had chosen for him, or what he was so determined to hide. Chapter 1. The mate bond was supposed to be sacred, unbreakable, something written into our souls by the moon goddess herself. According to the songs, it was a love deeper than choice, stronger than doubt, more powerful than anything mortal or imperfect inside us. That was what the elders taught. It was what every young Omega dreamed about during the quiet hours before dawn. But dreams and reality rarely spoke the same language. Reality was standing inside a ceremonial circle dressed in white silk that felt more like surrender than celebration. Reality was looking at the mate fate itself had chosen for you, and finding nothing but winter in his eyes. Reality was discovering that destiny promised a bond. It never promised love. And sometimes being bound forever to someone who did not want you was its own particular kind of hell. My name was Tamara Rollins. I was an Omega. But even among Omegas, I was considered broken. My sister Lyra had shifted into her wolf when she was 13. She had been radiant, strong, everything our pack expected a Rollins daughter to become. I was 23, and still trapped entirely inside my human body. No wolf, no shift, no howl rising inside me when the full moon called. The pack had whispered about me for years. Cursed, defective. A Rollins only by name. So when Alpha Harry Thornridge discovered that I was his fated mate, he did not fall to his knees in gratitude. He did not pull me into his arms. He did not thank the moon goddess for answering his prayers. He looked at me as though he had discovered something decaying beneath his boot. And on the day our bond was supposed to become permanent, I would learn just how deeply he resented me. The morning of my mating ceremony, I woke to find Lyra sitting at the foot of my bed. She was watching me with an expression dangerously close to pity. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. Pale dawn filtered through the window and caught in her amber eyes, the same eyes our father had. I pushed myself upright and wrapped the thin blanket more tightly around my shoulders. Even in late spring, I was always cold. Another weakness of a body without a wolf. Yes, I do. The bond can be rejected. Harry could reject me, I finished for her. My voice sounded strangely flat. And then what, Lyra? I become a rejected Omega with no wolf, no mate, and no future. At least if he claims me, the pack has to acknowledge that I exist. At least then I belong somewhere. Lyra's jaw tightened. She was everything I wasn't. Strong, shifted, respected. 2 years earlier, she had found her mate, a kind beta named Finn. I still remembered their ceremony, the way Finn had looked at her as though she were the most precious thing in the world, the reverence in his expression when he marked her, the way Lyra had relaxed into his arms without fear. I had known from the moment Harry discovered our bond that my ceremony would be nothing like theirs. "Father wants to see you," Lyra finally said as she stood. "He's in his study." Of course he was. Alpha Garrett Rollins always had something to say when appearances were involved. I dressed quickly in plain clothes. There was no reason to wear anything special yet. Later, they would put me into the ceremonial gown and prepare me like a prized animal waiting to be auctioned. The walk to my father's study seemed longer than usual. Pack members passed me in the halls. Most looked away. Some did it quickly. Others allowed me to see their contempt before turning their heads. I had stopped expecting kindness from them years ago. Among wolves, strength was everything, and in their eyes, I had none. My father did not look up when I entered. He sat behind his desk reviewing documents, the silver streaks in his hair catching the morning light. At 53, Garrett Rollins was still formidable. Broad shoulders, commanding presence, The picture of everything an alpha was expected to be, everything I was not. Tamara. He finally put down his pen. Sit. I lowered myself into the chair opposite him and folded my hands neatly in my lap. Quiet, proper, easy to overlook. Alpha Thornridge arrived last night with his delegation, my father began, in the detached tone he used for pack business. The ceremony will proceed at sunset as planned. The council has approved the arrangements. Yes, father. There are concerns. He leaned back and examined me as though I were another document requiring review. Harry has made it very clear that he is not pleased with this match. Something twisted painfully inside my chest. I'm aware. The mate bond is absolute, my father continued as though I had never spoken. But how that bond is honored leaves room for interpretation. Harry is within his rights to structure your relationship as he sees fit. I understood exactly what my father refused to say aloud. Harry could claim me, mark me, bind me permanently to himself. Then he could place me somewhere out of sight and forget I existed. The moon goddess's requirement would technically be satisfied. My name would appear beside his in the Thornridge pack records, and I could spend the rest of my life as nothing more than a legal footnote. I'll do whatever is required of me, I said. For one brief moment, my father's expression seemed to soften. Perhaps I imagined it. You are a Rollins, Tamara. Broken or not, you carry our bloodline. Don't disgrace it. He did not need to finish the thought. Don't disgrace it more than you already have. I won't. I only hoped it was a promise I could keep. The rest of the morning disappeared into preparations over which I had no control. Pack females I barely knew entered my room. They undressed me, bathed me, scrubbed my skin until it was pink and tender. They worked oils through my hair and rubbed scented mixtures onto my shoulders, wrists, and neck, anywhere an alpha might want to smell his new mate. Not one of them spoke directly to me. They spoke over me, around me, about me. She's so small. Do you think she'll survive the marking? Poor Alpha Harry. Imagine being bound to a Wolfless Omega. The moon goddess must be testing him. I learned years ago how to leave without moving. During moments like these, I retreated into the stories inside my own mind. Stories about Omegas who were brave. Omegas whose value was not measured by the strength of their wolves. Omegas who mattered. Inside those stories, I could become anything. I could shift into a magnificent wolf with fur like starlight. I could run through the forest until my paws hurt. I could be strong. In reality, I sat quietly while strangers prepared me for a man who wished fate had chosen anyone else. The ceremonial gown was beautiful. Even I had to admit that. White silk flowed around my body like water. Fine silver embroidery decorated the bodice and long sleeves. The neckline was high. The dress was modest. Unmated Omegas were supposed to arrive before their mates untouched, pure, pristine. The irony would have been funny if it had not hurt so much. I had never chosen purity. No wolf had ever wanted to touch the defective Omega. At 23, I had never even been kissed. You look lovely. Lyra appeared when it was time to leave. She wore deep green, a color that made her amber eyes glow. As my only sister, she would stand near me during the ceremony, moral support for the sacrificial lamb. I look like a ghost. I stared at myself in the mirror. The white gown drained what little color remained in my pale skin. My dark hair had been braided and pinned into an elaborate style that made my already thin face seem sharper. Gray eyes, the one feature I had inherited from my mother, stared back at me with barely concealed dread. Tamara, it's fine. I turned away from the mirror. I'm fine, let's just finish this. The ceremony grounds stood at the heart of our territory, inside a sacred clearing surrounded by ancient oak trees. Nearly 200 wolves had gathered. Every member of the pack who mattered seemed to be there. They wore their finest clothes and waited to witness my binding. And at the center of them all stood Alpha Harry Thornridge. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things often were. At least 6'4", broad-shouldered, built like a warrior. His dark hair was cut short with almost military precision. His eyes were a striking ice blue. They seemed capable of freezing whatever they touched. Harry wore black from throat to boots. Severe. Stark. He looked as though he had come to attend a funeral instead of his own mating ceremony. Perhaps to him, there was no difference. Then his eyes met mine across the clearing. The mate bond exploded awake inside my chest. I almost stumbled. A golden thread of connection stretched between us, something that had existed silently within me until the moment we stood face to face. The pull was unmistakable. Magnetic. Ancient. Woven into something deeper than flesh. If I had possessed a wolf, she should have been howling for him. She should have been fighting beneath my skin, desperate to reach our mate. To touch him. Claim him. Be claimed in return. Instead, I felt only the aching emptiness where my wolf should have been, and fear, because across the clearing, Harry's expression hardened. He did not want me. The bond did not matter. Destiny did not matter. I was about to bind myself permanently to a man who looked at me as though I were his punishment. It's time. My father appeared beside me. His hand closed around my elbow. Firm, unyielding. There would be no running, no escape. Together, we began walking toward the ceremonial circle. Toward Harry, toward a future I could not imagine. And with every step, the golden thread in my chest seemed to tighten until I could no longer tell whether it was connecting me to my mate or slowly strangling me. Chapter 2. The Ceremony of Shame. The Elder Council stood along the edge of the ceremonial circle, their expressions solemn beneath the weight of tradition. Elder Miriam stepped forward. She was almost 90, the oldest member of the council, and in her hands rested the ceremonial blade. It was ancient silver, engraved with runes older than either of our packs. My father released my elbow. Suddenly I was standing alone on one side of the circle. Harry waited opposite me, perhaps 20 feet away. It felt like miles. The mate bond hummed insistently between us, demanding recognition. Harry still barely looked at me. His gaze passed over me as though I were furniture. We gather beneath the witness of the moon goddess, Elder Miriam announced, her voice carrying through the silent clearing, to bind two souls chosen by fate itself. The bond between Alpha and Omega is sacred, eternal, and unbreakable. What the goddess has joined, no wolf may separate. I had heard those words at dozens of mating ceremonies. Usually they sounded hopeful, romantic. Today they sounded like the reading of a sentence. Alpha Harry Thornridge of the Northern Pack. Miriam turned toward him. Do you accept this Omega as your fated mate? To claim, protect, and honor until death parts you? Harry did not answer. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. Then more. Whispers began moving through the watching pack. Heat climbed my neck. Finally, Harry spoke. I accept what the moon goddess has given me. Not I accept Tamara. Not I accept my mate. Only an acknowledgement of divine obligation. He sounded like a man accepting a tax he could not avoid. Something cracked quietly inside me. I kept my face still. 23 years of hiding pain had made me good at that. Tamara Rollins of the Western Pack. Miriam faced me. Do you accept this Alpha as your fated mate? To submit to, serve, and honor until death parts you. The words caught somewhere in my throat. Submit. Serve. An Alpha's oath spoke of protection. An Omega's spoke of obedience. But what alternative did I have? Reject Harry publicly? I would become wolfless, mateless, and packless. 3 different kinds of death in our world. I accept, I whispered. Louder. Harry's voice cut across the circle. For the first time, those ice-blue eyes focused entirely on me. I flinched. If you intend to bind yourself to me, he said, at least have enough spine to say it clearly. Shock rippled through the witnesses. This was not how mating ceremonies were conducted. Even reluctant alphas did not humiliate their fated mates openly. I raised my chin. Then I looked directly into Harry's eyes. I accept. My voice was louder this time, steady despite the trembling in my hands. Something flickered across Harry's face. Surprise, perhaps. Maybe irritation that I had not broken as easily as expected. Then his expression returned to ice. "Enter the circle," Miriam instructed. Harry stepped forward. So did I. We met in the center. Standing this close to him made breathing difficult. I could smell pine, cold air, and something deeply wild beneath it. The empty place where my wolf should have lived ached. Harry towered over me. I had to tilt my head to see his face. Up close, I noticed the scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the sharp line of his jaw, the barely contained power inside his body. "Your wrists." Miriam approached with the blade. I extended my hands, palms upward. Harry did the same. The elder made a quick cut across each of our wrists, deep enough to draw blood, not deep enough to scar. Red welled against my pale skin. "Join hands." Harry took my wrists. His hands were warm, rough, and heavily calloused. His grip was far tighter than necessary. Pain shot through my arms as he pressed our wounds together. Blood against blood. Life against life. The ceremonial binding. "Speak your oaths." Usually, this was the most intimate moment of the ceremony. Mates spoke from their hearts. They promised devotion, partnership, love. I remembered the promises Lyra and Finn had made to each other. Harry's jaw tightened. "I claim you as mine," he said. "My mate, my Omega, bound by blood and moon law. What is mine, I keep." Nothing about love, nothing about cherishing me, only possession, ownership. Then it was my turn. Tradition demanded an Omega's promise of submission, service, and devotion. But some small part of me rebelled. He had already taken everything else. I could keep this. "I accept your claim," I said softly, without looking away from him. "I am bound to you by blood and moon law. What I am, I remain." Harry's eyes narrowed. We both knew those were not the traditional words. But they were not technically a refusal either. I had accepted the bond. I had simply refused to disappear inside it. "The bond is sealed," Miriam announced, though her expression told me she had noticed the alteration. "Let all who witness know these two are mated until death." The pack howled. Hundreds of voices rose into the evening air. It should have sounded joyful. Instead, it felt hollow. Harry released me so abruptly that I nearly stumbled. My wrists throbbed from the strength of his grip. "The marking," Elder Miriam said. The clearing fell silent. My stomach tightened. This was the part I had feared most. An alpha's mating mark was a bite placed on the throat of his Omega. It sealed the bond completely. Its scent told every wolf who the Omega belonged to. Usually the moment was gentle, intimate. An alpha supported his mate, soothed her, and made the pain brief. One look at Harry told me mine would not be like that. "Kneel." The entire clearing seemed to stop breathing. Alphas did not command their mates to kneel for the marking. They held them, supported them, protected them. Harry had spoken to me as if I were a subordinate awaiting punishment. "Harry." My father's voice came from outside the circle. There was a warning in it. "That's not. She is my mate." Harry cut him off without taking his eyes from me. "Or did you lie when you accepted my authority over her?" My father went silent. Harry had trapped him perfectly. Garrett Rollins had agreed to this union. He had placed me under Harry's authority. To interfere now would mean questioning the same bond he had just watched the council seal. I saw the exact moment my father chose. And once again, he did not choose me. He stepped backward. Lyra made a distressed sound. Finn caught her arm before she could move. No one would help me. No one could help me without breaking pack law. I was alone. Slowly, I lowered myself to my knees. The grass felt cold through the white silk. My gown spread around me like spilled milk. Beautiful. Ruined before anything had even happened. Harry moved behind me. My shoulders tightened instinctively. Everything inside me screamed danger. And yet the mate bond reached desperately for him. Tilt your head. I obeyed. I exposed the right side of my throat. My pulse beat so violently that I knew he had to see it. Harry placed one hand on my left shoulder. His grip was iron. Then he leaned closer. "This is what you wanted, isn't it?" He murmured so quietly that only I could hear. To be claimed by an alpha, to finally belong to someone. I turned slightly, but before I could answer, his teeth sank into my neck. Pain exploded through me. I had been warned that marking hurt. Nothing had prepared me for this. Fire, ice, electricity. Everything struck at once. The mate bond roared fully awake. And suddenly the connection between Harry and me was no longer a distant pull. I could feel him. His anger, his resentment, his complete rejection of what fate had made us. Those emotions poured through the bond like poison. I refused to scream. I refused to cry. If Harry wanted to break me publicly, I would not give him that satisfaction. Then he bit harder. Much harder than he needed to. A mating mark should take only seconds. Harry kept his teeth in me far longer. Deep enough to hurt. Deep enough to scar. As though he wanted this moment carved permanently into my body. When he finally released me, the world shifted sideways. Blood ran hot down my throat and stained the white silk. Gray shadows gathered at the edges of my vision. "Stand." Harry's voice remained cold. I tried. One foot beneath me, then the other. My legs shook violently. The pain, blood loss, and shock were overwhelming a body that had already been weaker than everyone else's. My knees collapsed. I hit the grass again. "Stand up." I tried to breathe. Stand. There was no concern in his face. "Or are you really this pathetic? She needs a healer." Lyra's voice broke through the crowd. "She's losing too much blood. She needs to become stronger," Harry answered. "She is an alpha's mate now. She does not get to be weak." Something inside me rebelled. I planted my hands against the ground, forced my feet beneath me, pushed upward. For half a second, I thought I might succeed. Then darkness swallowed the edges of my vision. My body gave up. I crashed face first into the grass. The last thing I heard before consciousness disappeared was Harry's disgusted voice. "Get her out of my sight." When I woke, I was lying in an unfamiliar bed. My throat felt as if it were burning from the inside. For several confused seconds, I could not remember where I was. Then everything returned. The ceremony. Harry's teeth. The blood. My collapse. The humiliation of falling in front of my mate while he watched with contempt. I pushed myself upright. Pain shot through my neck immediately. My hand rose instinctively toward the mark. It had been bandaged. Even through the gauze, I could feel unnatural heat. The wound was not healing correctly. Alpha saliva inside a proper mating bite normally accelerated recovery. Harry had marked me so deeply and viciously that the wound seemed almost infected. I looked around. The room was luxurious. Silk curtains framed enormous windows. Thick rugs covered the floor. The furniture was handcrafted and expensive. This could only be the Thorn Ridge pack house. My new home. My prison. A knock made me jump. "Come in." My voice sounded rough. A young woman entered. She looked 19 or 20. Kind eyes. Nervous movements. She gave a small curtsy. "Luna." For a moment I did not understand. Then the word struck me. That was me now. Luna Tamara Thornridge. Mate of Alpha Harry Thornridge. The Omega formally bound to this pack. "I'm Dessa," she said. "I've been assigned to serve you. How are you feeling?" "Like something mauled me." Dessa winced. The healer says your mark is going to scar. She's never seen. She stopped. She's never seen an alpha mark his mate as though he wanted to kill her, I finished. Dessa's silence answered me. Where is Alpha Harry? I was not sure I actually wanted the answer. In his study, he gave orders that he isn't to be disturbed. Dessa crossed to the bedside table. A tray waited there. You should eat. You lost a lot of blood. I had no appetite. I ate the soup anyway. Whatever came next, Harry was unlikely to be finished with me. I needed strength. Dessa. Yes, Luna? What do you know about Alpha Harry? Her face immediately became guarded. About why he is the way he is? It isn't my place to speak about the Alpha. I'm not asking for gossip. I looked directly at her. I'm asking because I need to survive him. That made her hesitate. Finally, she sat carefully on the edge of the bed and lowered her voice. They say Alpha Harry prayed to the moon goddess for a strong mate, a warrior Omega who could fight beside him, someone powerful enough to give him strong heirs. And instead she gave him a wolfless Omega who couldn't even stay conscious through her own mating ceremony. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Dessa looked down. He feels betrayed by fate itself. And I'm the face of that betrayal. She nodded. I closed my eyes. It made a terrible kind of sense. To a powerful alpha like Harry, I was not simply an inadequate mate. I was an insult, a cosmic joke, and unless something changed, he intended to make me pay for it for the rest of our lives. Chapter 3. 3 days passed before Harry came for me. For 3 days I remained inside the beautiful prison of my suite. Dessa brought meals. She changed my bandages. And every hour the mate bond tugged at me like a hook buried beneath my ribs. Find him. Go to him. Be near your mate. Submit. I ignored it whenever I could. Instead, I examined the rooms Harry had given me. It was not merely a bedroom. There was a private sitting area and a bathroom with a tub large enough to practically swim in. Everything had been decorated in silver and white. Expensive. Immaculate. Cold. There were no books, no paintings, no personal objects, nothing that suggested anyone actually lived there. It was not a home. It was a holding cell disguised as luxury. On the 3rd night, I was preparing for bed when the door opened without warning. Harry stood in the doorway. The hall lights outlined his tall frame. He had traded his formal clothes for dark trousers and a fitted shirt that emphasized the strength of his body. His ice blue eyes passed over me. Detached. Clinical. I wore a simple white nightgown Dessa had provided. It was modest and shapeless. I still felt exposed. Come with me. Not a request. Where? My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. Does it matter? You're bound to me. When I tell you to go somewhere, you go. He turned and walked away. The bond tightened painfully, urging me to follow. But some stubborn piece of me had survived the ceremony. If you're going to order me around like a dog, I called after him, you could at least have enough decency to tell me where you're taking me. Harry stopped. Slowly, he turned around. His expression was dangerous. What did you say? My heart hammered. I lifted my chin anyway. I asked where we're going. I think that's a reasonable question. He stared at me. Then something unexpected moved across his face. Dark amusement. So you do have a spine. I was beginning to think you were only a pretty doll that bleeds. The words were cruel. Oddly, they hurt less than his indifference had. The East Wing, he finally said. My private chambers. We have matters to discuss. Then he walked away again. This time, I followed. The Thorn Ridge pack house was enormous. 3 levels of stone and heavy timber spread across the territory like a fortress. Harry led me through unfamiliar halls, past locked doors, then down a staircase descending beneath the building. These are the old chambers, he explained. My great-grandfather built them when the pack was constantly under siege. Most of the East Wing is underground. Why keep using them now? The question escaped before I could stop myself. Harry continued walking. Because sometimes an alpha needs somewhere no one can hear him scream. I stared at his back. That answer did not fit the man I thought I knew. For one moment, it had sounded almost vulnerable. We reached a heavy wooden door reinforced with iron. Harry unlocked it with an actual metal key. Beyond it was a vast stone chamber with a vaulted ceiling disappearing into darkness. Unlike my sterile suite, this place felt lived in. Bookshelves covered 2 walls. They were crowded with old, worn volumes. A desk in one corner was buried beneath maps and papers. Worn leather furniture surrounded a huge fireplace. Everything looked used rather than displayed. And in the middle of the chamber stood a single wooden chair. Sit. I approached cautiously. Every instinct told me this was a trap. But again, what real choice did I possess? I sat. Harry began circling me slowly, a predator evaluating prey. Do you know why I brought you here, Tamara? It was the first time he had spoken my name. The sound of it in his voice made the mate bond pulse unexpectedly warm. To punish me again? To decide what to do with you. He stopped in front of me. The ceremony is complete. You are marked, claimed, and permanently bound to me, but what happens after that is my decision. I understand pack hierarchy. Do you? He leaned forward and braced both hands on the arms of my chair. His body caged mine without touching me. Because from where I stand, you do not appear to understand your position at all. You talk back, you question me. You altered your ceremonial oath. I accepted the bond. That was what the ceremony required. It wasn't all I required. His voice lowered. You're my mate, Tamara. Mine. Your body belongs to me. Your time belongs to me. Even your breath belongs to me. Yet you sit here behaving as if you have any say in what happens next. Fear curled in my stomach. But underneath it, for the first time, anger appeared. Then what happens next? I stared straight into his eyes. Are you going to kill me? Lock me somewhere? Use me and discard me afterward? Whatever you intend to do, Alpha, just do it. I am tired of waiting for the next humiliation. Something changed in his expression. Surprise. Then something harder to identify. Perhaps curiosity. Perhaps the smallest trace of respect. You want to know? Yes. Harry straightened. I'm giving you a choice. The only choice you will receive in this marriage. I waited. I refused to let myself hope. Option 1. You live as my mate in name only. I give you a cottage near the edge of the Packlands. You receive servants, an allowance, and anything necessary for your comfort. But you never see me. You never enter my bed. You never become part of this pack in any meaningful way. The bond remains, but I ignore it. It sounded almost merciful. It also sounded unbearably lonely. The mate bond would torture both of us forever, demanding closeness we refused to give it. Option 2. Harry began pacing. You remain here in the pack house and carry out Luna duties. You attend public events. You maintain the appearance of a proper mating. But privately, you belong to me completely. I use you however I choose, and you obey without question. 2 prisons. Only the walls were different. There's a third option. Harry stopped. Excuse me? You said I get one choice, but you only offered me choices you created. What if I want something else? His eyes darkened. You don't get to want things, Omega. That isn't how this works. Then it isn't a choice. I stood. Even I was surprised by the courage in my voice. It's you deciding how you want to punish me and pretending I participated in the decision. The air between us became charged. The mate bond screamed at me to submit. Back down. Obey your alpha. I ignored it. What do you want? Harry's voice became dangerously quiet. I want the chance to earn a place here. The words came quickly now. Not as your mate. I know you don't want me that way. But let me become something useful. Give me work, a purpose, something that actually matters. If I succeed, you start treating me like a person instead of a burden. And if you fail, then you choose my prison. Harry stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was sharp and humorless. You are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably both. He moved toward his desk and searched through several papers before pulling out a small leather-bound book. Do you know what this is? I shook my head. A collection of riddles that has been passed through my family for generations. Some are simple, others are philosophical puzzles. My grandfather tested me with them when I was young. He believed a true alpha needed a sharp mind as much as sharp claws. I still did not understand. Harry flipped through several pages, then closed the book. I'll give you one riddle. You have until dawn to solve it. I straightened. If you answer correctly, I accept your third option. You stay. You work. You prove your value, and I judge you by what you accomplish instead of your biology. And if I fail, you take option 1. The cottage. Exile in everything except name. It was a test. Possibly another cruel one. But it was better than surrendering without trying. What's the riddle? The edge of Harry's mouth curved. What can be given but never bought, broken but never held, kept but never seen? I repeated the words silently. Given, not bought, broken, not held, kept, not seen. How long until dawn? 6 hours. He headed toward the door. There's paper on my desk. Food and water are in the cabinet. You remain in this room until you give me an answer or the sun rises. What if I answer incorrectly? Then you answered incorrectly. His hand settled on the door. You only receive one attempt, Tamara. Think carefully. The door shut behind him. The sound echoed through the chamber. I was alone. One riddle. 6 hours. And the smallest chance I had ever been given to decide something about my own future. For the first hour I paced. Given but never bought. Love, too obvious. And it did not fit every clue. Trust? Perhaps. But trust was not something one physically held either. During the second hour, I wrote the riddle across several sheets of paper. I underlined individual words. Given, broken, held, kept, seen. During the third hour, desperation began creeping in. I tried answer after answer. Promises, secrets, faith. Silence. Every possibility seemed to fit some lines but not all. By the 4th hour, doubt was winning. Maybe there was no correct answer. Maybe Harry had invented an impossible test because watching me fail would amuse him. Maybe this had always been another humiliation. But something inside me refused to surrender. The same stubborn part that had survived 23 years of being called useless, broken, unwanted. Keep thinking. Keep trying. You have survived worse than a riddle. By the 5th hour, I stopped asking what answer fit the words. Instead, I asked why Harry had chosen this particular riddle. His grandfather had not used puzzles simply for entertainment. He had used them to teach a future alpha. So what lesson would a leader need from something given but never bought? Something broken but never held? Something kept but never seen? The answer struck me with sudden clarity. I sat in the wooden chair. Then I waited. Dawn came in thin shades of gray and gold through the high windows. The door opened. Harry walked inside, looking as though he had not slept. His hair was less controlled than usual. Dark stubble shadowed his jaw, but his eyes remained sharp. Well? He stopped in front of me. Do you have an answer? I stood. A promise. Harry revealed nothing. A promise can be given but never bought, I continued. It can be broken, although you cannot hold it in your hands. It can be kept without ever being seen. Still nothing. I drew a breath. But that isn't the whole lesson. One eyebrow lifted. Your grandfather was teaching you that an alpha's word matters more than his physical strength. A promise is the foundation of trust. Pack bonds depend on it. Leadership depends on it. If an alpha cannot keep his word, then strength alone does not make him worthy of being followed. Silence. Too much silence. Doubt crept in. Then Harry smiled. A real smile. It changed his entire face. For a moment he looked younger, almost boyish. My grandfather would have liked you. Relief hit me so hard that my knees threatened to weaken. So I'm right? You're right. He moved closer. There was no threat in the movement this time. Most people answer love, trust, secrets, or faith. Technically, several answers can fit, but they miss why the riddle matters. What happens now? His smile faded into something more thoughtful. Now you earned your third option. You stay, you work, you prove you are more than I believed you were, and I judge you by merit rather than by whether you can shift. And if I eventually fail? We deal with it then. He turned toward the door. Then he paused. Tamara? Yes? Don't make me regret this. He left. I remained in the underground chamber while morning light slowly reached across the floor. For the first time since the mate bond had trapped us together, something fragile appeared inside me, not trust, not yet. But perhaps the beginning of hope. Chapter 4. Dessa was waiting when I finally emerged from the underground rooms. The relief on her face was impossible to hide. Luna, she hurried toward me. We thought, when Alpha Harry took you down there and you didn't return all night. She caught herself. I'm fine. Exhaustion dragged at every muscle in my body. But actually, I think I'm better than fine. Dessa, I need you to tell me something. Anything. What does the Luna of this pack actually do? She blinked. Traditionally? Yes. Well, the Luna manages the household. She oversees Omega and Beta females, organizes pack gatherings, handles disputes that don't require the Alpha, and maintains relationships with allied packs. When did anyone last do those things properly? Her expression fell. Not since Alpha Harry's mother died. How long ago? 4 years. The answer told me everything. For 4 years, this pack had operated without a Luna. No one had truly filled the space Harry's mother left. Show me. Dessa looked confused. Show you? Everything that has been neglected. The situation was worse than I expected. Dessa walked me through storage rooms where linen had mildewed. The kitchen operated without clear organization or oversight. Record rooms were filled with boxes containing 4 years of documents that should have been properly filed. The Alpha doesn't pay attention to this side of the pack, Dessa explained apologetically. He manages the warriors, patrols, security, and political alliances. Everything else simply deteriorated. I could see the problem clearly. Under Harry's leadership, the pack had an excellent skeleton. Security was strong. Its warriors were disciplined. Its borders were protected. But the rest of the body was failing. And no one did anything? Dessa shifted uneasily. It isn't our place, Luna. Pack hierarchy is strict. Without a Luna, Omegas and Betas can only make limited decisions. We've tried to maintain things, but acting beyond our authority would be considered overstepping. Suddenly I understood what Harry had done without realizing it. By refusing to imagine a proper Luna at his side, he had allowed an entire half of his pack structure to collapse. And by giving me one chance to prove myself, he had accidentally given me the opportunity to repair it. Dessa. Yes? Gather every Beta and Omega female in the pack. I want them in one room this afternoon. Her eyes widened. And find the household ledgers from before Luna Thornridge died. I want to know exactly how this place used to function. Hope lit her face. Yes, Luna. She hurried away. I caught my reflection in a dusty window. I looked awful. My hair was disordered. Exhaustion darkened my eyes. A white bandage still covered Harry's mark on my throat. But something had changed. There was purpose in my face. 15 women gathered that afternoon in what had once been Luna Thornridge's parlor. The room stood on the second floor, with broad windows overlooking the eastern forest. The women ranged from teenagers to elderly pack members. Some were curious, some skeptical, a few openly doubtful. I stood before them knowing exactly what they saw. A wolfless omega, a woman who had collapsed at her own mating ceremony 3 days earlier. Someone who looked nothing like the Luna they would have chosen. I know what you're thinking. That gained their attention. You think Alpha Harry was cursed with a defective mate, and now she's going to pretend she can replace his mother. Several faces shifted. I continued before anyone could deny it. You think I'll fail because someone like me cannot possibly do what a real Luna did. Silence. Agreement lived in that silence. You may be right. That surprised them. I have never run a pack household. I don't have a wolf to command anyone's respect. I don't know everything a Luna should know. I looked around the room. But I can work. I can learn. And I know this pack deserves better than 4 more years of neglect. An older woman near the back raised her voice. Gray threaded her hair. Scars covered both hands. With respect, Luna. Why should we follow someone who cannot even shift? How can you understand pack needs when you're barely part of pack life yourself? It was exactly the question I had expected. You're right. Her eyebrows rose. I cannot shift. There are parts of being a wolf that I will never understand the same way you do. I paused. But I can read. I can organize. I can listen. And I can work harder than anyone in this room, because I have something to prove that none of you do. What? Another woman asked the question. That I deserve to be here. The gray-haired woman studied me. Then she slowly nodded. Fair enough. What do you need from us? Relief moved through me. Everything. I took out paper. Tell me what is broken. Tell me what has been ignored. Tell me what all of you have been trying to manage without the authority to fix it. I looked around the room. Then help me repair it. 4 hours later, I had 17 pages of notes and a splitting headache. The problems were extensive. Medical supplies were badly organized and insufficiently stocked. The kitchen had no proper meal planning system, which meant food was constantly wasted. Young pack members received combat training, but almost no structured education in reading, writing, or mathematics. Relations with 3 allied packs had deteriorated into formal obligation because no Luna had maintained personal connections with their households. The list was overwhelming. It was also exactly what I needed. I finally had something useful to do. That evening, I sat in the small room beside the old Luna's parlor that I had claimed as a temporary office. Papers covered my desk. I did not hear Harry enter. I only noticed when his shadow crossed my notes. You've been busy. Your pack house is falling apart. His eyebrows rose. I was too tired for diplomacy. The domestic structure has been neglected for years. Staff morale is terrible. Your allied packs probably assume you have no interest in maintaining relationships, and your medical storage is so badly organized that someone could die during an emergency, while the healer searches for the correct supplies. Harry's jaw tightened. I've been keeping our territory secure. I know. That stopped him. And from what Dessa told me, you've done it exceptionally well. Your warrior core is stronger than it has been in decades. I gestured toward my notes. But a pack isn't made only of warriors. It's also the people who feed them, teach their children, treat their injuries, maintain their homes, preserve their records, and hold relationships together. And you believe you can fix all of that? There was challenge in his voice, but also curiosity. I believe I can try. I met his eyes. You gave me a chance to prove I'm useful. This is how I intend to do it. Harry looked down at the organized chaos across the desk. After a moment, his expression changed. My mother used to sit in this room. His voice became quieter. She spent hours here doing all the things I apparently never noticed were falling apart. You weren't blind. The gentleness in my own voice surprised me. You were grieving, and no one could reasonably expect you to be both Alpha and Luna. I'm not grieving anymore. The tension around his eyes said otherwise. I did not challenge him. Instead, I asked the question that mattered. Will you support me? He looked at me. I can make plans and lists all day, Harry, but if this pack thinks you don't stand behind me, no one will give me enough authority to accomplish anything. I watched the conflict behind his eyes. Backing me meant more than approving household changes. It meant acknowledging that his defective mate might actually be his Luna. It meant sharing power. 1 month. I waited. Show me meaningful progress within 1 month. If you do, I publicly support your authority as Luna. If you fail, we reconsider the arrangement. It was not unconditional, but it was far more than I expected. Deal. Harry headed for the door, then stopped. That riddle. I looked up. Why did you think about my grandfather instead of simply searching for an answer? Because you told me he used riddles to teach you how to become an alpha. I shrugged lightly. So I assumed solving the words wasn't enough. I needed to understand what lesson he wanted you to learn. Something almost like a smile crossed Harry's face. You're smarter than you look. I would have to be. I glanced down at myself. Looking like this, the bar isn't particularly high. Harry actually smiled. Brief. Unexpected. Then, he left. I stared at the empty doorway for several seconds. Maybe I really could do this. The next 3 weeks became a blur. Every night I fell into bed exhausted. Every morning I woke with another plan. Dessa became my second in command. With her help and the reluctant cooperation of the pack females, we attacked the problems one by one. We reorganized the medical stores. Every item was labeled, inventoried, placed where healers could reach it quickly. I created weekly menus for the pack kitchen and introduced a system for tracking food so less would be wasted. I started a small school for younger pack members. Nothing grand. Older wolves who knew reading, mathematics, and writing volunteered to teach. But of everything I worked on, the library became the project I loved most. I found it by accident while exploring the upper floor. The room was enormous. Nearly 40 feet long, floor-to-ceiling shelves once held thousands of books. Now it looked like a graveyard. Volumes lay scattered across tables and floors. Several shelves had collapsed. A roof leak had damaged part of the collection. Dust covered everything. Luna Thornridge loved this room, Dessa told me. I looked at her. Harry's mother? She nodded. She spent hours here. After she died, Alpha Harry had the library locked. I think seeing it hurt him too much. I understood. Loss could turn something beautiful into a weapon, but locking pain away did not heal it. Sometimes it only gave the damage time to spread. We're restoring it. Dessa stared at me. Luna, this could take months, maybe years, and Alpha Harry specifically. Alpha Harry told me to prove my worth. I touched one damaged shelf. A Luna's library is more than decoration. These books contain medicine, history, records, knowledge. If Harry wants me to stop, he can tell me himself. I looked around. Until then, I'm doing what needs to be done. I assembled a team of 6-pack members, mostly Omegas, a few Betas. All of them preferred books to weapons. We began carefully. Every book was sorted, damage assessed, dust removed. Volumes that could be saved were cleaned. Those too damaged were documented. It was slow, delicate work, and I loved every minute. There was something peaceful about rescuing the books, turning chaos into order. As we worked, I discovered how extraordinary the collection really was. There were novels, poetry, pack histories, medical texts, philosophy, folklore gathered from territories across the region. One book captured my attention more than the others. A thin volume bound in worn leather. The language of riddles. Inside were hundreds of puzzles. Many included handwritten notes and elegant script I recognized from old documents as belonging to Harry's grandfather. I began reading it at night. The riddles were not merely games. Each carried a lesson. Leadership, truth, deception, promises, bonds, freedom, One night I became so absorbed in a riddle about cages and freedom that I did not notice Harry standing in the doorway. "You're supposed to be resting." I looked up. It was well after midnight. Harry appeared, partially shifted. Amber glowed through his eyes. His canines were slightly longer. He must have returned from a perimeter run. "I am resting." I indicated the book. "This is restful." His gaze moved around the library. Half the room was now clean, organized, functional. The other half remained damaged, but the chaos was controlled. "You weren't supposed to touch this room." There was no anger in his voice, only something raw. "I know." I closed the book. "I'm sorry if I crossed a line." "You didn't." Harry walked farther inside. His fingers moved across one restored shelf. "My mother would have hated seeing this place abandoned." "Tell me about her." He went silent. I thought he would refuse. Then he spoke. "She was strong." He glanced toward me. "Not physically. She was small, actually, about your size. But she made people want to become better versions of themselves. The pack adored her." "And your father?" "Worshipped her." A shadow crossed his face. "When she became sick, it happened quickly. A rare blood disease. One day she seemed healthy. 3 months later she was gone." "I'm sorry." The words felt hopelessly inadequate. "My father never recovered." Harry's jaw tightened. "He died 6 months later. The healer said his heart failed." He looked away. But I knew what really happened. "What?" "He died from grief." Silence filled the restored library. "That's why I prayed for a strong mate," Harry continued. "Someone who wouldn't break. Someone who wouldn't die and leave me the way she left him. Someone strong enough to survive life beside an alpha and give me heirs who would survive too. And instead you got me." My voice was quiet. "A wolfless omega who collapsed during her own ceremony. Someone fragile." The words should have hurt. This time, I heard something different beneath them. Fear. Someone you believe will die and leave you exactly the way your mother left your father. Harry finally looked at me. For the first time, the cruelty made terrible sense. He had not simply been punishing weakness. He had been punishing the possibility of loss. "I'm not your mother." "I know. And I won't promise you I can never die. Nobody can make that promise." I held his gaze. "But I am stronger than I look, Harry. You should know that by now." The amber in his eyes faded slightly. For the first time, I saw uncertainty there. Vulnerability. Fear. "Why? What? Why are you doing any of this?" He gestured around the library. "The household. The records. This room. You could have taken the cottage. You could have lived comfortably and stayed away from a pack that never wanted you, and a mate who treated you like a burden." I looked down at the riddle book. "Because I made a promise." "To whom?" "To myself." I touched the edge of the book. "When I accepted your claim, I said, 'What I am, I remain.'" Harry listened. "That was my promise. I wasn't going to let the bond erase me. I was going to prove I could become more than what everyone believed I was." I looked back at him. "And I keep my promises, Alpha, even when they cost me everything." Something shifted in his expression. The last amber disappeared from his eyes. His canines returned fully to human form. He looked at me as though he were finally seeing someone who had been standing in front of him for weeks. "The month is almost finished. I know. You've done more than I expected." He paused. "More than I thought possible." I waited. "Tomorrow night, the 3 allied alphas are coming for a diplomatic dinner." My heart accelerated. "You'll attend." "As what?" Harry looked directly at me. "My Luna." The word struck harder than I expected. "Officially?" "I'm publicly supporting your authority." My throat tightened. Harry hesitated. Then something resembling regret crossed his face. "It also means I may have been wrong about you, Tamara Rollins." "Thornridge," I corrected softly. His eyebrows lifted. "Tamara Thornridge. I'm your mate, remember? For better or worse." Mostly worse so far. The faintest smile entered his voice. I closed the riddle book. We have a long time to improve that. We're bound until death, after all. Harry did not answer. But when he left, the mate bond felt different. Less like a chain dragging me toward someone who did not want me. More like a thread between two people who might eventually decide to move closer on their own. Chapter 5. The Gathering of Wolves. The dress Dessa prepared for the diplomatic gathering was nothing like my ceremonial gown. This one was deep midnight blue, almost black. Silver embroidery crossed the bodice and caught the light like scattered stars. Elegant, refined, designed to make a statement. The Alpha commissioned it, Dessa said. I turned from the mirror. Harry? He sent your measurements to the pack seamstress last week. Last week? Before he had officially told me I would attend. Which meant he had already been considering it, watching my progress. Deciding whether I had earned the right to stand beside him. Warmth stirred inside my chest. Then anxiety quickly followed. Tonight was not only about proving myself to Harry. 3 allied alphas and their mates would be watching me. One mistake could make the Thornridge pack look weak. What are they like? Dessa worked on fastening the dress. Alpha Rowan of the Western pack is traditional, very intense. His mate is Luna Iris. She's kind but quieter. I nodded. Alpha Darius of the Southern pack treats almost everything like a negotiation. His mate died years ago, so he will attend alone. And the third? Alpha Silas of the Eastern pack. He's young for an alpha, not much past 30, but everyone says he's extremely sharp. His mate, Luna Vera, is apparently formidable. 3 alphas. 2 experienced Lunas. All of them would be judging whether Harry's Wolfless mate was an asset or a liability. No pressure. Dessa smiled. You'll be fine. She arranged my hair into an intricate style. You've survived everything else they've thrown at you. None of those things involved politics with wolves who could physically break me in half. True. She sounded entirely too cheerful. But you also haven't collapsed from any challenge recently. I laughed despite my shaking hands. She was right. 3 weeks earlier, I had been the broken Omega unconscious in the grass. Now I had helped reorganize an entire household, built a school, restored half a library, and earned at least some of my mates' respect. I could survive dinner. Harry waited at the foot of the main staircase. Formal black covered his powerful frame. Silver detailing matched the embroidery on my gown. When he looked up and saw me, his expression changed. Surprise. Perhaps appreciation. The mate bond hummed more strongly than it had that morning. You look. I waited. Appropriate. I stared at him. Appropriate? He raised one eyebrow. That's the best you can manage. Would you rather I lie and say you're beautiful? If that's your idea of a compliment, I would rather you remain silent. I reached the bottom step. Harry extended his arm. I took it. The warmth of him reached me even through his jacket. As we walked, he leaned slightly toward me. You look like a Luna. I looked at him. That is not a small thing. It might have been the kindest thing he had ever said to me. My voice would have shaken if I answered, so I only nodded. The dining room had been transformed. The long table gleamed. Fine crystal and china had been taken out of storage. Candles spread warm light across the room. Roasted meat and herbs scented the air. Weeks of working with the kitchen staff had paid off. Tonight, the Thornridge pack looked like a household that had never fallen apart. Remember. Harry lowered his voice as approaching voices sounded in the hall. You speak for this pack tonight as much as I do. My stomach tightened. They will test you. Stand firm. The doors opened. Alpha Rowan entered first. He was a huge man in his 50s with a gray-streaked beard and the kind of eyes that measured everything. Beside him walked Luna Iris, petite, blonde, graceful. Her gentle smile did not conceal how closely she watched the room. Harry, Rowan's voice boomed. Good to see you. Then his eyes settled on me. And this must be your new mate. The infamous Tamara. Infamous. Wonderful. Luna Tamara, Harry corrected calmly. The correction was mild. The authority behind it was not. Tamara, Alpha Rowan, and Luna Iris of the Western Pack. I offered my hand to Iris first. Her expression shifted slightly. I had intentionally acknowledged the Luna before her alpha mate. A small gesture of respect. Luna Tamara, Iris said warmly. You keep a beautiful home. Thank you, Luna Iris. Though I'm still learning. Your own territory is famous for how well organized the household is. Her smile became genuine. I had done my research. Rowan continued staring. I hear you can't shift, true? Rowan. Iris's voice carried a warning. It's all right. I turned toward him. Yes, Alpha Rowan, it's true. I have never had a wolf. He waited. But I've discovered there are other ways I can contribute. I gestured toward the carefully restored dining room. For example, I doubt a wolf could have put this room back together. Paws are generally poor tools for handling fine china. Silence. Then Rowan threw his head back and laughed. A great booming laugh. She has spirit, Harry. I'll give her that. The tension in my shoulders loosened slightly. Alpha Darius arrived next. Lean, silver-haired, calculating eyes. He greeted Harry formally before facing me. Luna Tamara, I've heard interesting things. I hope at least some of them were true. We'll see. He took his seat. I could not decide whether I had passed his first test or created another. Alpha Silas and Luna Vera were last. Silas was indeed young. Dark hair. Intense green eyes. Intelligence seemed to radiate from him. But Vera caught my attention immediately. Auburn-haired, beautiful, and heavily pregnant. Forgive us, she said, resting a hand over her stomach. Someone has decided punctuality is unnecessary. Congratulations. I smiled. When are you due? 6 weeks, if this little tyrant cooperates. Silas remained close enough to protect her without hovering. Vera took my hand. I've wanted to meet you, Luna Tamara. Why? Silas says you've been making quite an impression. I glanced toward Harry. He looked equally surprised. News moves quickly between allied territories, Silas said, especially when an alpha suddenly claims a fated mate, and that mate proceeds to reorganize most of his domestic operations in 3 weeks. I wouldn't say reorganize most. She's being modest. Harry's hand settled against my lower back. Possessive. Protective. The mate bond sang in response. Tamara accomplished in 3 weeks what I ignored for 4 years. There was something in his voice I had never heard before when he spoke about me. Pride. My heart raced. Dinner became a careful dance. Harry seated me on his right. Vera sat beside me. The alphas initially dominated the discussion. Borders. Rogue wolves. Trade. Territory. Meanwhile, Iris, Vera, and I carried on a quieter conversation. How are you finding Luna responsibilities? Vera asked. My first months nearly buried me. That sounds familiar. I smiled. Every time I fix one thing, I discover 2 others. I remembered something. Yesterday I learned this pack hasn't sent appropriate solstice gifts to its allies in 3 years. Iris winced. We noticed. Rowan noticed? Very much. I'm fixing it. I leaned toward her. Actually, I wanted your advice. I don't want to send something too formal or accidentally insult anyone. Soon the 3 of us were discussing gifts, protocol, family relationships, and the quieter diplomacy maintained by Lunas. I realized this was another test, but it was one for which I was unexpectedly prepared. These women were not decorative mates. They were political partners. They maintained relationships that often prevented problems before alphas ever needed to become involved. You're good at this, Vera said quietly. At what? Politics. Most new Lunas need months before they learn how to read a room. I've had years of practice being invisible. Her expression softened. When strength can't force people to respect you, you learn to watch them. Vera hesitated. Can I ask something personal? I nodded. The mark on your neck. My fingers immediately rose to the scar. The bandage had finally been removed 2 days earlier. The wound left a thick, angry red mark that no collar completely hid. That isn't a normal mate mark. No. Silas would kill someone for marking me like that. Her tone was matter of fact. Even when our bond was new, he was careful. A mate's mark should be gentle. I did not know what to say. I could not announce at a diplomatic dinner that Harry had deliberately hurt me because he resented my existence. Our ceremony was complicated. Vera continued watching me. But things are better now. After a long moment, she nodded. Good. Her eyes remained serious. Because you deserve better, Tamara. At the other end of the table, the conversation between the alphas had become tense. I heard Darius clearly. This is no longer sustainable. We need a unified response instead of every pack handling each threat independently. And who controls this unified response? Rowan leaned forward. You? Me? We're allies, Darius. We're not a federation. Perhaps some version of one would help, Silas said. The world is changing. Humans have technology capable of tracking us and recording evidence. Remaining completely isolated is becoming dangerous. Progressive thinking from the youngest man at the table. Rowan did not sound insulting. But tradition has protected our kind for centuries. Our traditions are failing. Harry's voice stopped the argument. Rowan, your southern border has suffered 3 rogue incursions this year. Darius has lost 2 wolves to human hunters. He looked around the table. Silas is right. We need to adapt. Silence fell. Each alpha considered whether supporting Harry would strengthen or weaken his own authority. Before I could reconsider, I spoke. What if you created a council? Every face turned toward me. Heat rose along my neck. I forced myself to continue. Not a federation. No pack gives up sovereignty. Darius leaned forward. Go on. A formal council between the 4 allied packs. You meet quarterly. Share intelligence about rogues and human activity. Establish common procedures for threats that affect multiple territories. I looked toward Rowan. Every alpha retains absolute control inside his own borders. The council only creates a structure for cooperation. That's actually not terrible, Darius said. My father's pack used something similar with its allies, I explained. It wasn't perfect, but it prevented several territorial disputes from escalating. Iris nodded. The Western Pack already uses a Luna Council for domestic cooperation. Silas considered it, an alpha council with limited scope and explicit boundaries. Rowan stroked his beard. We would need rules, and I will not surrender authority over my pack. No one is asking you to, Harry said, only to coordinate where cooperation makes sense. Within minutes, the argument had changed. They were no longer debating whether to work together. They were discussing how. Vera caught my eye. She winked. Iris smiled. I had contributed something important. Not as Harry's defective mate. As Luna. The bond warmed inside me. I glanced at Harry. He was already looking at me. And this time, there was no pity, no resentment, no surprise. Only respect. The gathering ended close to midnight. The 4 alphas agreed to meet again in 2 weeks to formally design the council. Goodbyes were warmer than the arrivals. More than once, someone told Harry some version of, "Your Luna is impressive." Each time, heat touched my face. Eventually, the final guest left. The staff cleared the dining room. Then Harry and I stood alone. You surprised me tonight. In a good way? A very good way. He moved closer. There was no coldness in him now. That council idea, where did you get it? Your library. Of course. His voice carried something almost fond. I found old treaty documents describing similar agreements. I've been reading them while restoring the shelves. You're always reading. I have to. His expression shifted. I don't have the luxury of being idle. I have to work twice as hard to be considered half as valuable. Harry went still. Is that truly how you see yourself? It's how everyone has seen me. I met his eyes, including you. Until recently. He said nothing for a long moment. Then he raised his hand. His fingers stopped just before touching the scar on my throat. I was wrong. My breath caught. About you. His voice roughened. And about what I did at the ceremony. I did not move. I was angry at fate, at the moon goddess, at the situation. His gaze dropped to the scar. And I punished you for it. He swallowed. The marking should never have happened like that. You did nothing to deserve that cruelty. No. I forced myself to say it. I didn't. I can't remove the scar. His hand dropped. But I can try to become different from the man who gave it to you. It was not a perfect apology. It was not love. It did not erase anything. But it was honest. And I had not expected even that. I would like that. The mate bond hummed between us. Harry leaned forward. For the first time since fate connected us, he touched me with tenderness. His lips pressed gently against my forehead. Not quite a kiss between lovers, but something kind. Something that made tears sting behind my eyes. Come on, he said when he stepped back. It's late. You've earned some rest. He walked me to my suite. Not his private chambers. My own. We were not ready for anything else. Perhaps we never would be. But progress was enough. Harry. He stopped outside my door. Yes? Thank you for tonight, for trusting me with something that actually mattered. He studied me in the hall light. Thank you for proving you were worthy of that trust, Tamara. Then he left. I stood alone with the memory of his lips against my forehead, and for the first time, I wondered whether something real could actually grow from the broken pieces of a bond neither of us had chosen. Chapter 6. The Truth Behind the Beast. The next morning began peacefully. Sunlight poured across my room. For the first time since arriving at Thorn Ridge, I woke without dread sitting heavily in my chest. The diplomatic dinner had been a success. Harry and I had moved forward. Maybe we could actually build something. That feeling lasted until Dessa knocked. When she entered, her face was pale. Luna, I'm sorry, but you need to come to the library. I immediately sat up. What happened? Please, just come. I threw on a robe and followed her through the halls. My mind raced. Had someone damaged the restoration? Was there a fire? Had water reached the books again? The library itself was intact, but Harry stood in the middle of it holding the language of riddles. His face looked devastated. Harry? I approached carefully. What happened? His ice blue eyes lifted. How long have you been reading this? A few weeks. Did you read the inscription? What inscription? He opened the front cover. There, in faded, elegant handwriting, were words I had somehow missed. I moved closer, then read them aloud. To my grandson Harry, may these riddles teach you what I cannot say, that the strongest bonds are built from promises freely given, not commands forcibly taken. With love, Grandfather Thornridge. Harry's expression hollowed. I never knew that was there. He stared at the page. My grandfather died when I was 15. This book disappeared afterward. My father told me it had been lost. But it wasn't. No. His laugh carried no humor. He hid it. Why? My grandfather's beliefs about mate bonds were controversial. Harry turned several pages. He believed an alpha should not command his omega. They should be partners. He thought traditional hierarchy had become toxic. He looked at me. To him, strength came from mutual respect, not dominance. He stopped on a page marked with one of my ribbons. This riddle, do you remember it? I looked down. What kind of cage is opened by its captive's choice? The answer is a bond, Harry said. A mate bond. Understanding came slowly. My grandfather believed a bond should never truly be a cage, that your mate should stay because they choose you every day. Not simply because the moon goddess or pack law says they must. And your father disagreed. My father believed completely in the old hierarchy. Harry's jaw tightened. Alpha authority, Omega obedience, control. He stared toward the windows. When my mother became ill, he tried to command her to get better, as if disease would obey him because everyone else did. Pain crossed his face. When she died anyway, something inside him broke. He couldn't accept that an alpha could be powerless. Harry carefully set the book down. That's why he hid this. My grandfather's ideas contradicted everything my father believed. And you grew up learning your father's version. Yes. Harry looked at me. That first night underground, when I gave you the promise riddle, I thought I was testing your intelligence. He shook his head. But my grandfather had been asking something much more important. What? Do you understand that real bonds are made through choice rather than commands? Silence settled over the room, and I answered correctly. You did. His voice softened. And I didn't even understand the question. Harry walked toward the windows. When I prayed for a strong mate, I imagined physical strength, a warrior, someone capable of surviving beside an alpha, someone who could give me powerful heirs. He stared into the eastern woods, but that's not the kind of strength my grandfather would have prayed for. What would he have wanted? Harry turned around. Someone strong enough to stay by choice. Someone who could look at an alpha who had treated her terribly and still decide to try. My throat tightened. Someone who could take a broken bond and build something worth keeping. He looked directly at me. He would have asked the moon goddess for you, Tamara. I could barely speak. I don't understand. The goddess didn't give me what I thought I wanted. Harry came back toward me. She gave me what I needed. His expression was completely unguarded. My father taught me, power came from dominance, that love meant possession, that an Omega should be grateful simply to be claimed. He reached toward my throat. His fingers touched the scar this time. Gentle. But you showed me something else. What? That real strength is not forcing someone to submit. His fingertips trembled slightly. It's earning their trust. His gaze dropped. I marked you as if you were property, something I owned. His shame flowed through the bond. You should have taken the cottage. You should have gotten as far away from me as possible. But I didn't. No. His eyes returned to mine. You stayed. You worked. And you proved that what I called weakness may be the strongest thing in this entire pack. The mate bond was alive between us. Through it, I felt his regret. His guilt. And beneath everything, a frightened hope that perhaps he had not destroyed us beyond repair. Why are you telling me this now? Harry lowered his hand. Because last night I watched you with the other Lunas. I watched you speak to the alphas, and I realized you are exactly what this pack needs. He paused. What I need. I said nothing, but I've given you almost no reason to stay here except obligation. That isn't completely true. Then answer honestly. He held my gaze. If the mate bond vanished tomorrow and you could go anywhere, would you stay? I had avoided that question for weeks. I don't know. The admission hurt. A month ago, absolutely not. Harry absorbed that without argument. Now I have work I care about, people I care about, a place in this pack. I swallowed. But staying for the pack isn't the same as staying for you. I know. His vulnerability made the words painful. And after what I did, I have no right to expect you to choose me. He drew a breath. But I'm going to try to become someone you might choose. That's a serious promise. Yes. I don't trust you yet. The honesty seemed necessary. I'm afraid to. Harry did not flinch. You hurt me deliberately. I can't pretend that never happened because you finally regret it. I'm not asking you to forget. He stepped backward, giving me space instead of closing it. I'm asking for the chance to earn forgiveness. No command, no alpha pressure, only a request. It would have been easy to refuse. Safer, perhaps. But I thought about the riddle. a cage opened by its captive's choice. A promise that could not be purchased. All right. Hope flickered across his face. But I have one condition. Name it. No more hiding. He frowned slightly. From me, from the pack, from yourself. I gathered my courage. I don't want the man your father taught you to become. What do you want? The man your grandfather believed you could become. Silence. The one who knows bonds are choices, not chains. Harry looked down. I don't know whether I know how to be him. Then we learn together. I smiled faintly. I don't know how to be a proper Luna either. We're both improvising. Harry laughed. Not the bitter sound I had heard before. A genuine laugh. We're a disaster. The worst. He extended his hand. He did not grab me. He simply offered it. I looked down at his palm, then placed my hand in his. The mate bond warmed, but more importantly, something inside me relaxed. It was not forgiveness. It was not happily ever after. It was simply a beginning. There's something else. Harry still held my hand. What? The real reason I spend so much time underground. My stomach tightened. I assume those chambers were your private rooms. They are. He hesitated. But they're more than that. He released me. Come with me. Harry led me back through the pack house. Down the familiar stairs. Into the underground rooms. But instead of stopping there, he opened a hidden door I had never noticed. A second staircase descended into raw stone. Harry? Keep coming. Where are we going? Somewhere no one else in the pack knows about. Not even your beta? Not even him. The passage eventually opened into an enormous cavern, at least 50 feet wide. And in the center stood a cage. A massive cage reinforced by chains. I stopped. What is that? Harry's voice tightened. This is where I spend 3 nights every month. Understanding hit me. The full moon. He nodded. You can't control your shift. Worse. Harry walked toward the cage. I shift whether I want to or not, and when it happens, I'm not myself. He ran his hand along the bars. I become violent, unpredictable, dangerous. I stared at him. My grandfather had the same condition. It appears in certain alpha bloodlines. His hand remained against the metal. He built this cage for himself. Later, he taught my father how to secure it. And you inherited the condition. When my father died and I became alpha, I inherited this too. Who knows? My father knew. Harry looked into the empty cage. He died before I had to manage it alone for long. Afterward, I developed a routine. I come here, lock myself inside, shift, rage until dawn. Then I return to human form and unlock everything when it's safe. His voice dropped. The pack believes its alpha is strong, controlled. He gave a bitter laugh. They don't know their alpha becomes a monster that must be caged 3 nights every month. Suddenly the pieces fit. His obsession with physical strength. His horror at discovering his mate was Wolfless. His fear that I would not survive beside him. That's why you wanted a warrior. Harry looked at me. Not only because you wanted strong heirs. I stepped closer to the cage. You wanted someone capable of surviving you if you ever lost control. Yes. And instead you got someone with no wolf. Someone completely defenseless if I ever... He stopped. He could not finish. I studied the bars. Silver reinforced them, painful to a shifted wolf. Strong enough to contain one. The lock could be secured from outside, but not released from within. How long have you been doing this alone? 4 years. 4 years. Every full moon. Harry entered this cavern and locked himself inside. No guard. No companion. No one waiting at dawn to remind him that he was still a person afterward. The next full moon is in 2 weeks. His body stiffened. I know. I'll come with you. Harry's head snapped toward me. Absolutely not. I can... No. His alpha voice shook the cavern. Tamara, you cannot. I can, and I will. I held his gaze. You asked me upstairs to give you a chance, to let you prove you can become a better mate. I walked closer. I'm asking you to trust me enough to stop doing this alone. It's dangerous. So we prepare. If something goes wrong, I'll use my head. I placed my palm against his chest. I'm smarter than I look, remember? His heart beat beneath my hand. You've carried this alone for 4 years. Let me carry part of it. You don't understand. Then teach me. His jaw tightened. Let me be your mate instead of the burden you were afraid I'd become. You are not a burden. The words came immediately. Rough. You never were. I was just too blind to understand that. Then let me prove it. Harry covered my hand with his. I felt his heartbeat racing. I'll stay outside the cage. I'll follow every safety rule you give me, but I'll be here. His eyes searched mine. You're terrifying. I blinked. You know that? Me? Completely fearless. I'm terrified. I almost laughed. There's a difference between not being afraid and staying anyway. My hand remained over his heart. That's what promises are, Harry. Staying even when keeping them becomes difficult. He pulled me against him, carefully, as though I might still break. His face pressed into my hair. His body shuddered. I don't deserve you. Probably not. A laugh escaped him. But you're stuck with me. That is what fated mates means. We stood together inside the hidden cavern, still damaged, still uncertain. But something between us was healing. One honest moment at a time. 2 weeks, Harry finally whispered. 2 weeks. And then we'll discover whether you still think this is a good idea. I looked at the cage. Probably not. He almost smiled. But I'll still be here. As we climbed back toward daylight, one thought refused to leave me. The coming full moon would test more than whether I could face Harry's beast. It would show whether the two of us could truly build something worth keeping from the ruins of the bond we had been forced to share. I had solved his grandfather's riddle about promises. Now I had to prove I could keep mine. Chapter 7. The Night of Becoming. The following 2 weeks existed somewhere between what Harry and I had been and whatever we were becoming. Harry did not suddenly turn gentle. He was still an alpha. Still decisive. Still accustomed to command. Pack members obeyed him without question. But with me, something changed. He became careful. Almost tentative. Most evenings, he joined me in the library. I catalogued books while he worked through pack correspondence. Sometimes we sat for hours without speaking. Other nights, he opened his grandfather's riddle book and read a passage aloud. Then he asked what I thought it meant. When we discussed pack decisions, he actually listened to my suggestions. No immediate dismissal. No hostility. The pack noticed. Whispers followed us. Some wolves approved. Others remained skeptical. Several unmated females who had apparently hoped Harry would reject me watched our growing closeness with obvious resentment. But most of the pack seemed cautiously relieved that their alpha had begun accepting his mate. They had no idea how complicated that acceptance really was. 3 days before the full moon, Harry took me into the cavern again. He showed me the cage. The shift begins at moonrise. He demonstrated the locking system. I enter before then. I secure the secondary lock from inside. He pointed to a larger mechanism. You engage this primary lock from outside. I watched carefully. Once I am secured, you remain at least 15 feet from the cage. He turned toward me. No matter what I say. I frowned. What do you mean, what you say? Harry's expression became grim. During the full moon shift, I am not entirely human or entirely wolf. I remain more aware than a normally shifted wolf, but I have far less control than I do as a man. So you might recognize me. I probably will. And? I might talk. What could you possibly say? Anything that convinces you to come closer. Cold moved through me. The beast is intelligent, Tamara. It can use my voice, my memories, anything it knows about you. You're saying it will manipulate me? Yes. Has anyone ever believed it? Harry went very still. My mother did. I stared at him. I was 17. She came here during one full moon because she thought she could comfort me. His voice hollowed. I nearly killed her. I stopped breathing. My father reached her in time. Harry looked toward the cage. Afterward, no one came here again. My father locked me inside and left until morning. That's why you've spent every full moon alone. It's safer. He gripped the bars. And it's why you should reconsider. I already decided. I am giving you another chance. Harry's eyes found mine. No judgment, no punishment, no consequences. Walk away from this. He was not afraid of the monster. He was afraid of what the monster might do to me. I'm staying. His jaw tightened. But I'll obey every protocol. I stepped closer. I promise. Harry closed his eyes. Relief and resignation crossed his face together. The full moon arrived beneath a perfectly clear sky. The kind of beautiful evening that seemed almost cruel considering what waited beneath the pack house. I spent the afternoon preparing exactly as Harry had instructed. Comfortable clothes, hair secured, water, food, everything necessary to remain awake until dawn. Dessa stopped me outside my room. Luna, please reconsider. I can't. The Alpha has handled this alone for years. He shouldn't have had to. But you're... She stopped. Weak? I supplied the word for her. Wolfless? Defenseless? Her face fell. Yes. All of those things are true. I gave her a faint smile. But I'm also stubborn, and I made a promise. I left before she could continue arguing. Harry was already inside the underground chamber. He paced restlessly. Oil lamps threw moving shadows across the stone. You came. He sounded both relieved and disappointed. I said I would. Saying something and doing it are different things. Not when it's a promise. Harry checked every lamp. All had been placed outside the 15-foot safety line. The moon rises in 20 minutes. He looked toward the cage. I need to be locked in before then. I watched him enter. The heavy door closed with a metallic clang. Harry secured the internal locks, then nodded. I approached only far enough to operate the main mechanism. The lock was heavy. It required both hands. Finally, it clicked into place. Harry immediately tested the door. It held. Good. He pointed toward a recessed section of stone at the far wall. Stay there. You can see everything, but you'll be safely outside my reach. Inside the alcove sat a chair. Beside it was a small table. Bread, water, a thick blanket. Harry had prepared for my comfort even while anticipating his own suffering. Harry. He looked over. Thank you for trusting me. His laugh was bitter. Thank me in the morning. You may not want to after tonight. Then the moon rose. I had witnessed hundreds of shifts. Normally transformation was quick, natural. Bones changed. Fur emerged. A wolf replaced the human body in seconds. Harry doubled over with a cry. The sound echoed around the cavern. His body convulsed. Muscles twisted beneath his skin. The transformation did not flow. It fought him. Seconds became agonizing minutes. I gripped the chair. Everything inside me wanted to run toward him. I remained still. I had promised. Bones cracked loudly. His skin rippled. Dark fur erupted across parts of his body. But the change never became complete. His face elongated. His hands became claws. His body grew larger, yet parts of him remained horrifyingly human. Then it ended. I stared. The creature standing inside the cage was neither man nor wolf. Nearly 7 feet tall, bent slightly forward, covered mostly in dark fur with patches of human skin. Powerful muscles filled its altered frame, but its eyes remained unmistakably Harry's, ice blue. Aware. They immediately locked onto me. Tamara. The voice was distorted by the changed throat. Still his. It hurts. The creature moved closer. Please come here. My heart hammered. Harry had warned me. I can't. Something went wrong. Its claws touched the bars. The lock may be damaged. Tamara, check it. The lock is fine. You don't know that. I'm not coming closer. The creature tilted its head. For a second, desperation disappeared. Something calculated replaced it. Smart little Omega. A distorted smile exposed its teeth. Harry said you were smart. Harry was smart enough to warn me about you. About me? It sat. I am Harry. Its gaze never left me. Only the part he keeps locked away. The part that wants to hurt me. No. It leaned against the bars. The part that wants you without all the guilt, fear, and self-hatred. The mate bond pulsed. Whatever stood inside that cage was still connected to me. Still part of Harry. If you really wanted me near you, I said, you wouldn't manipulate me. The creature watched. You would control yourself and earn my trust. A rough laugh filled the cavern. You are different from what I expected. What did you expect? When Harry first saw you, all he felt was disappointment. I flinched despite myself. And anger. The beast studied me. But now, it moved closer to the bars. Now he thinks about you constantly. Stop. He wonders whether you'll stay. I know what you're doing. He hopes you will. My fingers tightened around the blanket. And he is terrified of how badly he wants that. Stop. The beast's voice softened. He thinks you're beautiful. My breath caught. He noticed during that diplomatic dinner. I said nothing. That blue dress made your eyes look like storm clouds. The beast almost sounded amused. He wanted to tell you. But he couldn't find a way to say it without believing you would think he was lying. That was too specific. Too intimate. He regrets the mark every time he sees your neck. My hand rose automatically toward the scar. He wishes he could return to that day and do it gently. Enough. He wishes he had been the mate you deserved from the beginning. Stop. My voice broke. He's falling in love with you, Tamara. Tears burned behind my eyes. The beast continued. He's terrified of it, fighting it, but he is. It stared through the bars. And he believes you'll leave the moment you understand what he really is. I stood. If you are truly part of Harry, then stop trying to hurt me. The creature went still. Because hurting me hurts him too. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then the beast retreated. It crossed to the far side of the cage, curled its enormous body inward. When it spoke again, the voice was quieter. You're right. A pause. I'm sorry. Hours passed. I remained in the alcove. The beast remained behind the bars. Sometimes it paced. Sometimes it rested. And sometimes it spoke. Not threats now. Memories. Thoughts. Fragments of Harry without the armor. I learned his mother used to sing while tending her garden. His grandfather taught him to read through riddles, one puzzle at a time. His father became harder after Elena died. Ruler. He taught his son that love was weakness and control was strength, because admitting grief had defeated him would have meant admitting there were things an alpha could not dominate. I learned Harry sometimes dreamed of being ordinary, not weak, not powerless, just an alpha who could shift under the moon without becoming something trapped between man and beast. And eventually I understood something else. The creature was not separate from Harry. It was not another person hiding inside him. It was simply the part of Harry that could not lie, the part without manners, protocol, pride, or the defenses he used to protect himself. He's afraid you'll reject him. The beast's voice came from the darkness. When you finally see everything. The cruelty? Yes. The curse? Yes. The damage his father left behind. The creature's eyes reflected the lamplight. All of it. He thinks I would run at the first difficult thing? No. The beast shook its head. He thinks that little of himself. The answer silenced me. His whole life, Harry was told his worth came from strength, control, dominance. The beast moved slightly closer. Then you appeared and started valuing completely different things. What things? Kindness, persistence, intelligence. It looked at me. Keeping promises. I lowered my gaze. He doesn't know if he can become what you need. What I need is honesty. My voice softened. Effort. Someone willing to keep trying even when things are hard. I looked back at him. I don't need perfection. I've never been perfect either. You're perfect for him. I almost laughed. Even if the human half is too stupid to understand it yet. I did laugh then. Did you just call yourself stupid? If the judgment is accurate. Amusement entered the distorted voice. He spent weeks treating you like you were worthless when you were exactly what he needed. That seems fairly stupid. Maybe we're both stupid. How? I stayed with someone who hurt me. I looked toward the bars. I kept trying to prove myself to someone who had already decided I was inadequate. You stayed because you're strong. The beast moved nearer. No threat this time. You understand that real bonds require work. Its head lowered. And you keep your promises. Something painful tightened in my chest. That is why he's falling for you, not despite what he once called your weakness. The creature looked toward me. Because of your strength. Eventually, darkness began thinning beyond the small upper windows. The beast noticed first. It's almost finished. When the moon sets, I shift back. The creature looked at me. He won't remember most of what I told you. Should I tell him? That's your choice. It lowered its head. But everything I told you was true. How do I know that? The beast can manipulate. Its mouth curved. But it cannot truly lie. The first sunlight entered the cavern. The creature convulsed. Transformation seized its body again. This time, it happened faster. Fur vanished. Bones shortened. The massive figure collapsed toward human form. Minutes later, Harry lay naked on the floor of the cage. Human. Exhausted. Breathing hard. Tamara? His voice was hoarse. His voice. Are you there? I'm here. I stood. I'm all right. Thank God. Harry pushed himself upright. His entire body trembled. Unlock it. I approached the mechanism. Please. The lock released. The cage door opened. Harry stumbled forward. I rushed to catch him. There was no possibility that my small body could truly support his weight. He leaned against me anyway. You stayed. He stared down at me. The whole night. I told you I would. I thought. He stopped, then wrapped both arms around me. Thank you. His voice broke. For not leaving. I was terrified. Harry pulled back. But you stayed anyway. His hands framed my face. His eyes looked almost disbelieving. You're the strongest person I have ever met, Tamara Thornridge. Before I could answer, he kissed me. Not like the ceremony. Not possession. Not punishment. His lips were gentle. Tentative. Asking. I answered. The mate bond surged with a feeling I had never experienced before. Rightness. When we finally separated, both of us were breathing hard. I'm falling in love with you. Harry said it as though the words escaped before he could stop them. I don't know when it happened. He shook his head. Maybe when you solved the riddle. Maybe when you challenged 3 alphas over dinner. Maybe while I watched you rebuild my mother's library one book at a time. His voice became unsteady. But I am, and it terrifies me because I'm still learning how to be the mate you deserve, and I know I'll make mistakes, and... I pressed 2 fingers against his lips. The beast told me. Harry froze. What? It talked all night. Horror spread across his face. Tamara, what did it tell you? I smiled. That you think I'm beautiful. His eyes widened. That you regret hurting me. He closed his eyes. That you're afraid I'll leave. Tamara. And that you're falling in love with me. I rose onto my toes and pressed my forehead against his. Which is convenient. Harry barely breathed. Because I'm falling in love with you too. The expression that crossed his face made every terrifying hour inside that cavern worth it. Joy. Disbelief. Hope. Really? He whispered the word. Really? Even though I'm a disaster? Especially because we're both disasters. He kissed me again. This time there was nothing uncertain about it. But it still felt chosen. Not taken. The mate bond blazed between us as dawn filled the windows. When we finally separated, Harry wore a genuine smile. Come on. He took my hand. Let's leave this cursed cave. You've been shifting all night. You need sleep. Later. Harry, I want to show you something. His fingers tightened gently around mine. Trust me. And I did. Chapter 8. Harry did not take me back to the pack house. Instead, he led me into the eastern woods. Morning painted the sky rose and gold. Birds called from the trees. Small animals rustled beneath leaves. Where are we going? My hand remained inside his. Somewhere I haven't visited since my mother died. His voice softened. Somewhere she loved. We walked for perhaps 20 minutes. Eventually the pack house disappeared behind us. Then the trees opened. A perfect circular clearing appeared beneath the morning sky. Wildflowers covered the grass. Ancient oaks surrounded the space like the walls of a natural cathedral. In the center stood a simple stone marker. Harry stopped. My mother's memorial. I looked at him. My father had her body burned according to tradition, but he placed this stone here so there would be somewhere to remember her. We approached. The inscription was simple. Elena Thornridge, beloved Luna, true mate, forever remembered. My father came here every day after she died. Harry stared at the stone. Then eventually he stopped coming. And after he died? I couldn't. He swallowed. Every time I tried, all I could feel was everything I'd lost. I stood beside him. And everything I believed I had failed to do. You didn't fail them. Harry gave a sad smile. Didn't I? He sat on the grass. I joined him. My mother became ill and I couldn't save her. My father disappeared into grief and I couldn't reach him. Then I inherited the pack and spent 4 years ignoring half its needs because I had no idea how to replace what they left behind. But you brought me here. He looked toward the sunrise. Yes. Why now? Harry stayed silent for a while. Then he answered. Because last night I finally understood something. I waited. My parents had an extraordinary bond. His gaze remained on Elena's memorial. My father loved my mother so deeply that after she died, he could not imagine living without her. Harry drew a slow breath. He always taught me that was weakness. Your grandfather believed the opposite. Yes. Harry looked at me. He believed loving someone enough to become vulnerable was one of the strongest things anyone could do. His ice blue eyes held mine. Letting someone see every broken part of you takes more courage than fighting any battle. I understood. You were afraid of becoming your father. I still am. He looked down. I'm afraid of loving you so much that if I lose you, I won't survive it. My throat tightened. But I think I've understood strength backward my entire life. What do you mean? I thought strength meant control. Harry's voice was quiet. Distance. Never needing anyone. He looked at me. But you stayed when you could have walked away. His expression softened. You kept loving the parts of people everyone else abandoned. He glanced toward the woods. You sat in a cavern all night beside a monster because you promised you would. Emotion burned behind my eyes. Harry, I want to do this properly. He shifted. Then, to my shock, Alpha Harry Thornridge moved onto one knee in front of me. He took both my hands. I know we're already mated. I could barely breathe. Bound by ceremony, blood, moon law. His grip tightened. But none of that was chosen. His eyes moved briefly to the scar he had given me. I claimed you like property. Pain entered his voice. I marked you with cruelty. I gave you no choice. What are you doing? I whispered the question even though I already knew. I'm asking. His voice was stripped of every trace of alpha command. Tamara Thornridge. He looked up at me. My mate. My Luna. The woman who taught me what strength actually means. Tears filled my eyes. Will you choose this? I stopped breathing. Choose me. His voice shook. Not because the moon goddess bound you to me. Not because pack law says you belong here. He squeezed my hands. Because you want to. Tears slipped down my cheeks. Harry, we're already mated. I don't care. A desperate half laugh escaped him. I'm asking anyway. He looked terrified. I'm asking you to choose me today, and tomorrow, and every day after that. My heart pounded. The way you chose to stay last night. He drew in a breath. I'm asking you to marry me. I stared at him. A real marriage. His eyes never left mine. Not another mating ceremony where I treat you like an obligation. His voice roughened. A wedding where I promise to spend the rest of my life earning the choice you make. The sun had fully risen. Golden light covered the clearing. Wildflowers moved in the breeze. Harry remained kneeling, powerful enough to command an entire pack, vulnerable enough to wait for my answer. How could I say anything except the truth? Yes. His breath caught. Yes, Harry. I smiled through my tears. I choose you. His face transformed. I choose this. I tightened my fingers around his. I choose us. Harry pulled me into his arms. We held each other beneath the morning sun. I'm going to make you a ridiculous number of promises. His voice was against my hair, and I'm keeping every one. I laughed softly. Starting with what? I will never mark you in anger again. He pulled back. I will never make you feel as though you are less than extraordinary. His hands framed my face. And I will spend every day proving that you were exactly the mate I needed. That's a lot of promises. What happens when you make a mistake? Then I apologize. He smiled. And try again. And if you make another one? I keep trying until I get it right. Harry kissed my forehead. Because you're worth the effort. His eyes held mine. You always were. We remained in that clearing until the sun was high. We talked about everything. A real wedding. Small. Intimate. Nothing like the political spectacle of our mating ceremony. The pack. The new Alpha Council. The library. The future. Children someday, perhaps. If fate allowed it. And adoption if it did not. A life based on choice rather than obligation. When we finally returned to the pack house, we walked hand in hand. I felt lighter than I had in years. The weeks afterward became the opposite of our beginning. Harry had once avoided me. Now he searched for me during the day. Sometimes he stole a kiss in an empty corridor. Sometimes he dragged me into his office only because he wanted to talk. Every evening, without fail, he came to the library. The scar on my neck did not disappear. It remained thick. Angry. A permanent piece of our history. Harry developed a habit of kissing it gently whenever we were alone, as though tenderness could somehow repair what cruelty had made. I'm sorry, he would whisper against the damaged skin. Every time. I know. And I did. Some wounds disappeared. Some stayed. Sometimes healing meant the scar simply stopped defining the rest of your life. 6 weeks after the full moon night, we married. The ceremony took place in the clearing beside Elena's memorial. Only the people closest to us attended. Dessa stood beside me as my witness. She cried through almost the entire ceremony. Harry's beta, Cole, stood with him. Cole was a gruff man who had quietly overseen pack security for years. This time, when Harry and I spoke our vows, no one chose our words for us. I looked at him. I promised to choose you every day for the rest of my life. My voice remained clear. In strength and weakness, in joy and sorrow, in the easy days and the impossible ones. Harry's eyes shone. I promise to be your partner, your Luna and your friend. I squeezed his hands. I promise to sit beside your darkness and celebrate your light. Then I said the words I knew he needed most. You are enough exactly as you are. When Harry's turn came, his voice shook. I promise to earn your choice every day of my life. He looked at the scar on my neck. I promise to treat your trust gently. His eyes returned to mine. To honor your strength, to never again make you feel less than the extraordinary woman you are. His next words nearly broke me. I promise to become the mate my grandfather would have been proud of. He breathed deeply. To build a bond from freedom rather than chains. His hands tightened around mine. And I promise you will always be treasured. When we kissed, the pack howled. This time the sound was joyful. Celebration, not obligation. And when Harry gave me a second mark on the opposite side of my neck, he was slow, gentle, reverent. It did not feel like punishment. It felt like home. 3 months later, I was working in the library when Dessa burst through the door. Luna! I jumped. Luna, come quickly. What happened? I put down the volume I was cataloging. Nothing bad. She was nearly laughing. Just come. She dragged me through the pack house toward the main hall. A crowd had gathered. I worked through it and stopped. Vera stood in the center. She was no longer pregnant. A small bundle wrapped in blue cloth rested in her arms. Luna Tamara. She smiled brightly. I wanted you to be one of the first people to meet him. She adjusted the blanket. This is Thomas. I stepped closer. Thomas Harry, actually. My eyes widened. Silas claims it's because Harry's counsel probably prevented a future war. Vera smiled. But the real reason is that we both admire what the two of you built together. I looked down. A tiny face appeared between the folds. Dark hair. Perfect little features. He's beautiful. The words escaped as a whisper. Congratulations. Would you like to hold him? I hesitated, then nodded. Vera carefully placed the baby in my arms. He felt impossibly small, warm, fragile, perfect. An ache opened inside my chest. Not exactly pain. Longing. I still had no Wolf. My ability to carry a pregnancy successfully was uncertain at best. Harry appeared beside me. As he often did now, he seemed to know when I needed him without being called. His arm slipped around my waist. He's handsome, Harry told Vera and Silas. Your pack is blessed. After the congratulations were finished, Harry quietly guided me away. We had moved into shared quarters 2 weeks after our wedding. I had discovered Harry was surprisingly domestic. He liked everything neat, almost obsessively so. And he had an irritating habit of rearranging my piles of books when he believed I was not looking. Once we were alone, he closed the door. Talk to me. I sat on the bed. What? What is happening inside that brilliant head? I looked down at my hands. I was thinking about children. Harry sat beside me. About whether we'll ever have our own. Yes. He took my hand. Do you want children? I think so. I swallowed. Someday. But I don't know whether my body can do it. The old shame returned before I could stop it. I'm broken, Harry. His expression hardened. Tamara. No Wolf. Probably infertile. I looked away. You should have had a mate who could give you heirs. Stop. His voice was firm, but no longer cruel. First, you are not broken. I looked at him. You're different. That's not the same thing. He took both my hands. Second, I do not want some hypothetical mate capable of giving me heirs. His eyes held mine. I want you. Emotion tightened my throat. Only you. What if we never have children? Then we don't. Harry shrugged as though the answer were obvious. If we have biological children, I'll be grateful. He smiled slightly. If we can't, there are orphaned pups in every territory. I stared at him. Children without families. He touched my cheek. If fate doesn't give us biological children, we'll give a family to children who need one. Tears filled my eyes. You are enough, Tamara. The words struck a wound I had carried for most of my life. With or without a wolf. His thumb brushed my cheek. With or without children. Tears spilled over. You are enough, exactly as you are. I broke. Years of being defective. Unwanted. Less. Worthless. All of it came out at once. Harry pulled me against his chest and simply held me. I love you, he whispered. Again. I love you. Again. I love you. His arms tightened. Nothing changes that. Not wolves, not children, nothing. Eventually I lifted my tear-streaked face. Harry smiled. Besides. What? If we adopt, imagine how much fun we'll have teaching them riddles. I stared at him. We can become those strange parents who answer every question with a philosophical puzzle. A laugh escaped me. That actually sounds perfect. Good. Harry pulled me down onto the bed. Now you need sleep. It's the middle of the afternoon. I'm the alpha. I can declare mandatory naps. That isn't how alpha authority works. It does today. He wrapped himself around me. I had patrol all night. I'm exhausted. I settled against his chest. This is clearly an excuse to cuddle. Possibly. Is that a problem? Not even slightly. We fell asleep in the afternoon sunlight. When I woke several hours later, Harry was already awake. He sat beside me, watching. What? My voice was still sleepy. I was thinking about the first riddle. I immediately recited it. What can be given but never bought, broken but never held, kept but never seen? A promise. Exactly. Harry brushed hair away from my face. And I realized we both kept ours. I smiled faintly. You promised to stay. His voice softened. To try. To build something here. And you promised to become better. To earn your choice. He nodded. We kept those promises when it was difficult. Especially when it was difficult. Harry became serious. Then I want to make another one. What? 30 years from now, when we're old and gray and still fighting about how the library should be organized, I promise I will still choose you every day. My chest felt painfully full. That is a dangerous promise. I mean it. He kissed me gently. What about you? I considered everything that had happened. The broken Omega I had been. The Luna I had become. The uncertain future stretching ahead of us. I promise that even when you are completely insufferable, which happens frequently, I'll still love you. Harry smiled. I promise that whenever the full moon comes, I'll sit vigil. His smile faded into something softer. And I promise I will keep choosing you. I touched his face. Choosing us. I paused. Even when you reorganize my books. Even then? Even then. He laughed. Though I make absolutely no promise not to hide your riddle book when you're especially annoying. Fair. His warm laughter filled the room. For once, the future did not frighten me. Epilogue. 1 year later, the library was finally finished. Every surviving book had been catalogued, every shelf restored. Damaged volumes were either repaired or respectfully preserved. It had taken an entire year. The result was breathtaking. Pack history, knowledge, memory. Everything that had once been abandoned now had a place again. I stood in the center of the room and slowly turned. Near the entrance hung a plaque Harry had commissioned. The Elena Thornridge Memorial Library, restored with love by Luna Tamara. You know. Harry's voice came from the doorway. My mother would have loved you. I turned. He leaned against the frame, watching me with the same expression that still made my heart skip. Love, wonder, almost disbelief that we had truly found our way here. You think so? I know so. He walked toward me. She valued intelligence, kindness, persistence. His arms settled around me. 3 things you possess in unreasonable quantities. I leaned against his chest. She would have loved what you did here. His gaze traveled across the shelves. You gave me this room back. It was always beautiful. I breathed in his familiar scent. Pine. Snow. Home. It only needed someone willing to care for it. Like me. Harry murmured the words near my ear. I was always worth loving. I just needed you to teach me how to recognize it. We stood quietly between thousands of books. Then my heart began racing. I need to tell you something. Harry immediately looked at me. Good or bad? I'm not sure. I stepped away slightly. Maybe both. Concern entered his face. The healer examined me yesterday. His entire body tensed. Why? I haven't been feeling like myself. Are you sick? No. Injured? No. Tamara, what happened? I looked into his eyes. I'm pregnant. Silence. Complete silence. Harry stared. You're… what? Pregnant. I laughed nervously. About 6 weeks, according to the healer. He still did not move. She said conception is rare for Wolfless omegas, but not impossible, and… I never finished. Harry lifted me from the floor. He spun me around while laughing. Pure joy. When he finally put me down, tears shone in his eyes. We're having a baby. He sounded as though he barely believed the words. You're carrying our baby. Yes. But Harry. He immediately calmed. The healer says the pregnancy is high risk. His smile faded. Without a wolf, my body may struggle. He pressed his forehead to mine. Then we handle whatever happens together. Harry, please. His hands framed my face. Right now, for one moment, let me be happy. His voice broke. Let me celebrate that the woman I love is carrying our child. I smiled through tears. Okay. Harry dropped to his knees. He pressed his cheek gently against my still flat stomach. Hello in there. I covered my mouth. I'm your father. His voice softened. And I'm promising you something right now. He rested a hand against my belly. I will be better than my father was. Tears ran freely down my face. I'll teach you riddles. I'll teach you that strength does not require cruelty. He looked up at me. I'll love your mother every day so you grow up knowing what real love looks like. His hand remained over our child. And every single day, I will tell you that you are enough exactly as you are. I ran my fingers through his hair. That's a lot of promises. I know. Harry smiled. But I keep them now. His eyes met mine. I learned from the best. 6 months later, on a cold winter night beneath a heavy full moon, labor began. The healer had warned us it could be difficult. She was right. Without a wolf to strengthen my body through the process, every hour became a battle. Harry spent most of the night pacing outside the birthing room. Several times his anxiety became so intense that his eyes shifted and his claws partially emerged. Eventually the healer opened the door. She needs you. Nothing else. Harry was at my side immediately. He took my hand. Another contraction tore through me. I squeezed hard enough to bruise him. I can't. I gasped for breath. Harry, I can't do this. Yes, you can. I'm weak. No, I can't. You sat beside a monster for an entire night because you made a promise. I looked at him through tears. You reorganized a pack household in a month. Another wave of pain hit. You stood across a dinner table from 3 allied alphas and spoke when everyone else was too proud to compromise. His hand tightened around mine. You restored an entire library 1 book at a time. He leaned close. And you loved me when I gave you every reason not to. Harry kissed my forehead. You are the strongest person I know. His voice steadied me. You can do this, Tamara. Somehow, impossibly, I did. Our daughter arrived shortly before dawn, tiny, pink, and screaming loudly enough to prove her lungs worked perfectly. The healer laid her against my chest. I looked down at her face, and my entire world shifted. She's beautiful. Harry's voice cracked. He stood beside the bed with tears openly running down his face. She's perfect. His hand trembled as he touched her tiny head. You're both perfect. What should we call her? Harry became quiet. Then he looked at me. Elena. My heart tightened. After my mother. His eyes searched mine. If you're comfortable with that. I smiled. Elena Tamara. Harry stared. So she carries both of us. He bent over our daughter. Elena Tamara Thornridge. A single finger traced her tiny cheek. Welcome to the world. His voice broke. You are already so loved. That night, after the healer finally left and Elena slept peacefully nearby, Harry and I lay together in the dark. You know what I just realized? I turned toward him. What? The moon goddess answered my prayer. I raised an eyebrow. I asked her for a strong mate. His arm tightened around me. Someone who could survive being bound to me. Someone who could give me strong heirs. A faint smile touched his mouth. And she gave me exactly what I asked for. I'm not sure I qualify as strong. You are the strongest person I've ever known. He touched my face. I was simply looking for strength in the wrong places. He glanced toward Elena. You survived being bound to me when I was cruel. His expression darkened briefly with regret. You gave me an heir despite every obstacle your body had to overcome. Then he looked back at me. And you did all of it with more intelligence, courage, and grace than any warrior I know. So the moon goddess has a sense of humor. Harry laughed softly. I think she is simply much smarter than I am. He kissed my temple. Thank you. For what? For choosing me. His eyes moved toward our sleeping daughter. For staying long enough for me to become someone worth choosing. He held me closer. For giving me a family I never believed I would have. I smiled. Thank you for learning how to be chosen. Harry's eyes softened. For keeping your promises. I rested my head against him. For proving that a bond does not have to become a cage. We fell asleep wrapped around each other while our daughter breathed softly beside us. And in those final quiet moments before sleep, I thought about promises, riddles, choices, and the strange path that had brought us here. I had begun as the broken Omega punished at her own mating ceremony. I had collapsed beneath the weight of Harry's cruelty and everything I had been taught to believe about my own inadequacy. But I had gotten up again. I had kept my promises. I had chosen to stay long enough to build something real from the ruins of a bond that had begun without either of us understanding what love truly required. And eventually, I understood the truth hidden inside Harry's grandfather's riddles. Strength does not mean never falling. Strength is getting up again. Love is not perfection. It is choosing someone freely, again and again, especially when that choice requires work. The mate bond rested warmly between Harry and me. No longer a chain, no longer a cage, only a connection we both chose to maintain. A promise freely given and faithfully kept.